Hello friends, we are attempting to shift our focus from that of the process of comminution to that of concentration. Now, in order to do that, we have been considering techniques that act as the intermediary between the process of comminution and that of concentration. Now, if you could recollect, few lectures before we considered or we focused on a technique called as screening, which largely focused on separating the particles based on their sizes. Now, the concentration, if you could recollect, is a process that helps us separate the gangue particles from that of the mineral particles. The comminution essentially, it rather liberates the particles, the mineral particles from that of the surrounding gangue particles. So therefore, the end product of the process of comminution, it comprises of the mixture of minerals and gangues. So what essentially the concentration does is it separates the mineral particles from that of the gangue. So this is essentially, or if you just consider the overall intent of the concentration is just to separate the mineral particles from that of the gangue particles. So we are essentially moving from the fragmentation to the separation process. And in this transition, we consider one event that is an integral part of the comminution called as screening. And screening, it separates the particles. It does not worry about its density, it does not worry about the chemical composition of the particles, it does not worry about the mass. What essentially screening cares about is the size of the particles. And screening is a large scale process. It is largely, or it is essentially used, or it is principally used on an industrial level. So what it focuses on is separating the particles into two categories. One is the oversized particles and the other is the undersized particles. So the screening process, it separates the mixture of the particles that is rendered by the comminution, particularly tertiary crushing, into oversized and undersized particles. So you have a specific size range, and depending on that size range, you separate the particles into undersized and oversized. So you don't essentially worry about the chemical composition or the density of the particles that you separate. It all depends on just the size of the particle. Even though there is this rudimentary aspect or this basic aspect of separating the particle based on their sizes is involved, this is a transition from the principal component of the comminution. So the principal component or the principal characteristic features of a comminution is the fragmentation, and when you move to the process of screening, you are no longer considering fragmentation, but you are essentially talking about the process of separation. Despite being a distinct process on its own, screening plays an integral role in the overall scheme of the comminution process. Now, once you are able to separate the undersized and the oversized particle, essentially what it enables us to do is it enables us to feed in the appropriately sized particles to the appropriate equipment. For instance, the undersized particle that is identified by the screening process is fed into the grinding mill, whereas the oversized particles is reverted back and fed back into the tertiary crusher or the final crushing stage. So essentially, the screening helps us increase the efficiency of the overall comminution process, and it is not essentially a fragmentation process, it is a separation process. So you are moving closer to that of the concentration. Just concentration, if you consider rather the event that is involved in it, concentration also does the separation. However, in concentration, the separation is based on the chemical composition. In concentration, what we desire is the separation of the minerals from that of the impurities. Now, if we do compare concentration and screening, what you essentially see is the common thread line here is both involve separation. Now, even though both these involve separation, there is a significant gap between the process of screening and this concentration, because screening just cares about the size, and the oversized and the undersized particles are correspondingly fed into the crushing or the grinding respectively. So what we need is, the way we try to move or closer to that of the concentration is, we have in the previous lecture considered a refined form of screening. This refined form of screening we refer to as the classification. Now again, classification in some instances form an integral part of the comminution. So where the classification, the place the classification occupies in the scheme of the overall comminution process is usually after the grinding. Now, the output of grinding, it is sent for the process, or it is sent for the separation process, that is for the concentration. Now, again, similar to that of the crushing, the grinding is also rather a probabilistic process. So therefore, one cannot ensure that all the particles that come out of the grinding is of the identical size or of the desired size. So in order to ensure that all the particles that come out of the grinding mill are rather assessed and the appropriate particles are fed into the comminution or concentration process, we need to have an intermediate step. So let me repeat, similar to that of the other crushing process, similar to that of some crushing processes. For instance, we have crushing processes unlike the ones like jaw crushers and the relevant crushers, wherein the probability plays a role. And we also have the screening process wherein a probability plays a role. In this way, in case of the grinding mill as well, the probability plays a vital role. So when you have a process wherein the probability plays a vital role, one cannot ensure that all the output that is rendered by the specific process is of identical nature. So if you could recollect what involves in the process of grinding, what you have is we have an interaction between particles and particles, that is feed and feed, and the grinding media, and in addition to that we have the interaction between grinding media and the particle. So it is these interaction that brings about the reduction in the size, and these interaction, unlike the jaw crusher, it is rather random and involves a lot of probabilities. So when you have a process that involves probability, you cannot ensure that the desired reduction ratio is achieved during the grinding process. So therefore, one cannot directly interlink the grinding to that of concentration. So if you could consider the schematic of the events involved, you have crushing and you have grinding. Even within you have these two, that is crushing and grinding, you have a closed loop. And in this closed loop, what you involve is screening. Now between grinding, so after the output of the grinding is fed for concentration, that is the separation of the mineral and the gangue. And even this transition, it involves a closed loop. And in this closed loop, what we essentially employ is not screening, but rather classification. So the reason we differentiate this is because the particles that we will be assessing after the grinding process, they are much smaller than the ones that we assess using screening. So therefore, the particles that are classified using this unique process of classification, they cannot be, going to their sizes, they cannot be treated under the large scale industrial screening. So the particles that we handle during the classification, they are significantly smaller and they cannot be handled or they cannot be treated using the conventional screening technique. Now in this previous lecture, we saw that the approach taken for classification is quite different. So what essentially classification does is, in classification, the fundamental feature that enables us to classify the different particles is by allowing the particle to settle down at its unique velocity. We allow the different particles to assume a specific velocity while it is settling down. Now this velocity, we refer to it as the terminal velocity. Now this terminal velocity cannot be achieved in a vacuum. So in order to have this terminal velocity, a constant velocity, you need a dragging or a resistance force. So essentially, when you consider a setup in a vacuum, there is only one force that is acting on a material that is falling down, that is the acceleration or the gravitational force. And the movement or the propagation of the particle when it is handled in a vacuum is largely, or it is principally governed by this gravitational force, and therefore the force that is governed, or the rate at which the particle moves in a vacuum is downward, is rather governed by acceleration due to gravity. When you have all these particles, when you have particles of different sizes exclusively governed by acceleration due to gravity, then what we end up having is all the particles traveling at the same speed. So when you have all the particles traveling at the same speed, it is impossible for us to classify. So therefore, this particular classification process cannot be achieved in a vacuum. So what we essentially need is we need a medium that offers a resistance to the propagation, the downward movement of the particles based on its mass. So depending on how the particle propagates through or propagates downward, depending on the characteristic features of this particle, there should be a resistance offered to it, and this resistance allows the particles to travel at different velocity. Once we are able to achieve a distinction in the velocity with which the particles travel, we are essentially able to classify these particles based on their velocity. Now, in order to do that, in order to establish a resisting force, we rather perform classification in a specific medium. So this medium, it introduces a resistive force, and therefore essentially the classification, it comprises of an accelerating force plus a resistive force, which is referred to as the drag force. Now the combination of these two, it offers a particle that is propagating downwards a constant velocity that is referred to as the terminal velocity. So in the absence of a drag force, when the particle is allowed to fall freely, you essentially have an accelerating movement of the particle that is primarily due to the acceleration of gravity. Now when you impose a drag force, when you impose a resistive force through the medium, through an appropriate medium, there is a counterbalance, there is a balance that is struck between the accelerating force and the resistance offered by the medium, and therefore a terminal velocity, a constant velocity is reached, and essentially you have particles then assuming a definite velocity and continuing to fall at that specific velocity. Now this velocity, it is essentially dependent on the mass of the particle, and when you consider the mass, we saw in the previous lecture, it depends on two factors. So even though superficially we can say that this depends on the mass of the particles, this depends on two factors. The mass of the given particles depends on two other factors, that is density and size. So essentially when we mean by size is volume. So the reason we say that mass depends on the density and size, because the expression for the density is nothing but mass by volume, and volume is fundamentally governed by the size. So when we say that in classification the terminal velocity of a given particle is governed by mass, what we implicitly mean is the terminal velocity assumed by the particle is governed by both density and size. Now let us take a step back and see the different processes that we are considering. In screening, we essentially want to separate particles based on their sizes. So in screening, the particles are separated based on their sizes. We have undersized and we have oversized particles. In case of concentration, we want to separate based on the particles based on their chemical composition. In concentration, we saw during this introduction, there are several processes that constitute, or there are several processes that can be used in order to concentrate a given mixture. In order to separate a mineral from a mixture, you can use different processes. So concentration is not one specific process, there are several processes that are involved, or there are several processes that are referred to as the concentration. One such process wherein density is employed to separate the mineral particle from that of the gangue also constitute the overall process of the concentration. Screening is a specific process, it separates the particle based on their sizes. In case of concentration, it is a collective term, it includes different processes that are used to separate gangue from its minerals. So we are trying to interrelate three different processes: screening, which is largely focused on size. The fundamental variable governing the process of screening is size. In case of concentration, we have several processes that includes the concentration process. So concentration is a generalized term. When you look specifically, there are several processes that are involved in it. If you could recollect our discussion on concentration, one process involved separating the gangue from mineral based on the difference in their densities. So when you have a mixture of gangue and minerals, and this gangue and mineral they exhibit a significant difference in their densities, so this density variable can be used to separate the mineral from its gangue. So therefore you have one of the concentration process that operates entirely based on density. On the one end of the spectrum you have screening that operates entirely based on size. On the other end of the spectrum you have concentration one process of concentration that operates entirely based on density. Now in between we have classification that operates by combining both size and density. So essentially we have a perfect intermediary between screening and concentration, that is classification, which operates or which is governed by the combination of size and density. Of course it is masked as the mass of the particle. So we have one end screening, the other end concentration, one process of concentration, we need to remember that, and that depends on the density of the gangue and mineral. And we have classification that even though appears to be governed by the mass of the particle, the mass can be expressed as a combination of density and size. So it is governed by the classification. The process of classification is governed by the combination of size and density. Now in the previous lecture we saw that depending on the terminal velocity, the resistance offered by the medium during the process of classification, it varies. So when you have a low terminal velocity, the particle is surrounded by a stable layer of the medium. The particle is blanketed by a stable layer of the fluid, that is the medium, and this stable layer continues all through the propagation of the particles. So therefore any resistance between the flow of the particle and the medium in which it is flowing, it is not directly imposed on the particle but the surrounding layer of the medium. So this is referred to as the viscous resistance. So essentially, depending on the velocity with which the particle is flowing or falling through the medium, when we have a low velocity, when we have a low terminal velocity, we have a stable formation of a blanket made of the medium, and the resistance is not directly offered on the particle but on this blanket. So this is referred to, this blanket, it continues till the particle hits the floor or till the terminal velocity or till the propagation is sustained, and this is referred to as the viscous resistance. Now in contradiction or in complete or contrary, so what you essentially have in case of height, there is height when the particle travels at high terminal velocity, what you have is there is this blanket that is formed is rather unstable, and therefore at every instance the new blanket attempts to form, and because of the friction this blanket wears out, and there is the resistance that is offered directly on the particle itself. So therefore that is referred to as the turbulent resistance. You have a smooth viscous resistance at low terminal velocity and high turbulent resistance at high terminal velocity. Now this is rather the theory behind the process of classification, and essentially these are the factors that govern the classification and how the materials or how the particles are being classified. Now one simpler way to look at the process of classification is, so far what we have assumed is that we have, for instance, a cylindrical barrel, and in that we have a specific medium. So this cylindrical barrel, it comprises of a specific medium, and in this cylindrical barrel, so this medium is rather stable, it is static. So in this barrel we allow the particles to fall. So we allow these particles, specific particles of different sizes and even different densities, we allow these particles to fall, and depending on the specific features of the particles, these particles assume a constant terminal velocity And depending on this constant terminal velocity, we are able to classify these particles. So this is what so far our discussion has been. Now one way we can enhance this process is by replacing this static fluid and introducing a specific form of a movement to this fluid, to this medium. So what we mean by that is, we set a premise the same. We have a similar cylindrical barrel, and this barrel is again filled with fluid. Now instead of this fluid being static, what we have is, we allow this fluid to rather flow in a direction opposite to that of the falling of this particle. So the particle, they are allowed to fall naturally, so it means the particles are falling downwards. So you have this particle falling downwards, you have this particle falling downwards. So you allow the free fall of the particles, meaning it is falling downwards. Now what you do is, in order to enhance your process, you allow the fluid, the medium, to flow in the opposite direction. So you allow the medium, which is in blue, to flow in the opposite direction. So you are now forcing the fluid to flow in the upward direction at a specific velocity. So this is referred to as the fluid velocity. So here in case 1, what you have is, you have particle in a static state, or rather you have the fluid or the medium in a static state, and the particles are allowed to free fall. And despite the medium being in static state, the fluid being in static state, the particles, because of the balance of the accelerating force, that is the gravitational force, and the resistive force offered by the medium itself, the particle assume a constant terminal velocity, and based on this constant terminal velocity, we are able to separate the different particles based on its size and density. Now in case 2, we are considering a bit more sophisticated process, where instead of having a static medium, we have a dynamic medium that is moving upward, that is moving in a direction opposite to the free falling or opposite to the falling particles. Now in this case, these fluids are moving at a specific velocity, a constant velocity, which we refer to as the fluid velocity Vf. Now we have in one direction the fluid moving, and in the other direction, in the opposite direction, directly in the opposite direction, we have the particles freely falling. Now what we essentially have is, so if we assume the velocity with which the particles are falling, and as Vt, which is nothing but the terminal velocity, now the resultant movement of the particle depends on not just Vt but also the fluid velocity. So here the movement of the particle in case 1, when the medium is static, the movement of the particle is just dependent on the terminal velocity. However, in case 2, in a rather sophisticated case 2, where we don't have a static medium but we have a dynamic medium, the fluid is rather flowing upwards. In this case, what we essentially have is, the ultimate movement of the particle, it not only depends on its terminal velocity, but also it depends on the fluid velocity. Supposing if the terminal velocity of the particle is greater than that of the fluid velocity, then the particle will move downwards. The particle will continue to move downwards. So when the terminal velocity, the velocity with which the particle is falling downwards, is greater than that of the fluid, the velocity with which the fluid is flowing upward, then if you could, it's rather straightforward to imagine, what you would expect is the particle then will be able to overcome the flow of the fluid and then continue falling downwards. On the other hand, if the fluid velocity is rather greater than that of the terminal velocity assumed by the particle, then the flow of the fluid will overtake that of the particle, and it will push the particle upward, and the particle will now, in a resulting manner, will move upward. So essentially what we have now introduced is, we have now, instead of offering a static resistance, we have now offered a dynamic resistance, and essentially now, instead of the resistance, so instead of two different forces, that is the accelerating force and the resistive force governing the behavior of the fluid, now by offering a dynamic medium, we are now considering the interplay of two different velocities. So initially in this case, in the static case, there are two forces, that is accelerating force and the resistive force, that leads us to the terminal velocity, and based on that we classify our particles. But here we have a sophisticated setup, and now because of that sophisticated setup we have an additional velocity. Now again it is the interplay between it is unlike here, it is the interplay between the terminal velocity, or rather terminal velocity and the fluid velocity. Of course, the terminal velocity is dependent on the accelerating force and the resistive force, but here the resistive force is rather dynamic in nature. And the relation between the terminal velocity and the fluid velocity helps us, like this rather sophisticated approach helps us easily classify the particles. So when we have such a setup, the time taken for the particle, not only the time taken for the particle to reach the bottom of the barrel varies, but the direction with which the particle, or the direction in which the particle propagates, will also vary. Here the only variable is the time taken for the particle to reach the barrel. So at the end of the barrel, to reach the bottom of the barrel. So here there is only one variable, that is the time taken, the duration that is spent by the particle in the barrel. So therefore we need to wait for a prolonged period of time in order to classify the different particles. However, here in case of the dynamic setup, here what we essentially have is, we not only are governing the time spent by the particle within the given barrel or the given setup, but also we are governing the direction. So therefore it is possible for us to not only collect the resultant particles at the bottom of the barrel, at the bottom of the equipment, but also at the top of the equipment. So in this case, the particles satisfying these conditions will be gathered at the top of our equipment, and the particles that satisfy these conditions, the particles whose velocities are greater than that of the fluid velocity, they will be gathered at the bottom of the equipment. And when you have a unique condition wherein the accelerating force and the resistive force are rather balanced, meaning the velocity of the fluid is equal to the terminal velocity assumed by the particles, so the particles rather stay suspended within the equipment, and then we can separately classify those particles. So essentially what we have done is, using this particular setup here, using the sophisticated form of the dynamic setup here, we were now able to classify the three different categories of particles, three different forms of particles. One form of particle whose velocities are greater than that of the fluid velocities. When you have these particles with velocity greater than that of the fluid velocity, they get gathered at the bottom of the equipment. When it is less than that of the fluid velocity, it is not able to resist the upward movement of the fluid, so it gets gathered at the top of your equipment, and when the velocity balances out each other, so essentially these particles stay for a prolonged period of time within the equipment, and they can be gathered separately. So essentially, in the sophisticated setup wherein the dynamic movement of the fluid is introduced, what we end up having is, we are able to rather categorize more different forms of the particles. Now it is important for us to note that even though we are talking in terms of the terminal velocity and fluid velocity, it is important for us to note that the terminal velocity, even though the fluid velocity is a constant and that can be varied based on the equipment, so it does not have any role to play, or it does not play much of a role, or it is not dependent on the features of the particles. However, the terminal velocity, as we have seen, it depends on the mass meaning the density and the size of the particles. So D here is the size of the particles. So ultimately, even though we are discussing in terms of, so in case of the sophisticated approach, we are discussing in terms of the terminal velocity and the fluid velocity, we should not forget that this particular factor here, this particular factor that dictates the both direction in which the particle is flowing and the velocity with which the particle is flowing, is dependent on the feature of the particles, namely mass, density and its size. So in case 1, what we have seen is the overall setup. It is just dependent on it just governs the velocity with which the particle is flowing. whereas in the second sophisticated case, wherein we have the flowing of, wherein we have the dynamic medium, both direction and the velocity is governed, or it is rather involved. So it enables us to categorize rather easily the different sized or different particles of different density, particles of different size, ultimately the particles of different masses. So along with the sophistication that is involved in the equipment, there is an ease in separating or an ease in classifying the particles. Now when we consider rather the free falling of these particles, so all these operations, be it case 1 or be it case 2, these all dependent on the falling of these particles, the downward movement of these particles. So we have these particles exhibiting a downward movement, and this downward movement is governed by the terminal velocity. So irrespective of the cases, static medium, dynamic medium, it all depends on the downward movement of the particles, and this downward movement, it is referred to as the falling, because these are in most cases governed by the gravitational force, and there are two different ways of falling that these particle experiences. One is free falling and the other is arrested falling. So these are certain terminologies that are associated with classification that we need to be acquainted with when we face or when we consider the classification process in an industrial setup. So when we are talking about the classification, what we are essentially considering is the movement of the particles governed by a specific force, or governed by the combination of forces. One is the downward force, that is usually the gravitational force. The other is the resistive force. Now when you consider the downward force or the accelerative force, even though this force, it rather pulls the particles along a specific direction, the way the particle responds to this force depends on several factors. One we saw is the medium. The other factor that governs the movement of the particles in response to this downward pulling force is the amount of particles that we feed in. The particle density, or the volume fraction of the particles. The particle density, meaning density is not the individual density of the particles, rather a more easier way of posing it, or more clearer way of posing it, would be volume fraction of the particles. So what we are essentially considering is, what are the factors that govern the movement of these particles in response to the accelerating force? So accelerating force is the gravitational force. So when you have a gravitational force which is pulling the particle downwards, all the particles in response to this force will fall downwards. Now in addition to this accelerating force, this gravitational force, the movement of the particle is governed by, or it is influenced by the medium, the resistive force that is offered by the medium. You have gravitational force pulling all your particles. In a vacuum there is no resistive force. When there is a medium that is present, even be it air, so this air offers a resistance, a friction to the falling of the particles. In addition to that, another factor that offers or that influences this free falling of the particles, this falling of the particles, is the volume fraction of the particles that is present in the medium. Now if you consider, again we will go back to the simplistic example of a barrel with a medium, and there is a gravitational force that is pulling the particles downwards. So let the G be the gravitational force that is pulling the particles downwards. So what you essentially have is, you have the resistance offered by the medium, and in addition to that, you have, depending on the volume fraction of the amount of particles that is present in the medium, the movement of the particle varies. Supposing we have a few particles in the medium, so you are just considering for the process of classification just few particles. Now in this case, the probability of one particle interacting with the other is rather limited, so therefore these particles exhibit a free falling. So when the number of particles you consider for the process of classification are small, then correspondingly the interaction between each of these particles will get reduced. So ultimately the particle is rather principally governed by the accelerating force, that is the gravitational force alone, and also there is this resistive force, but it is principally, the downward movement is principally governed by the gravitational force alone. There is not much role played by the interaction between the particles, because the number of particles you have considered is quite low. So this is referred to as the free falling. In case of arrested falling, you consider relatively huge number of particles, relatively high number of particles. So you consider, say, particles that are quite huge in number when compared to that of the free falling condition. So in this case, the free falling is rather governed or influenced by the interaction between these particles. Now these particles, so imagine, so you have a layer of smaller particles and there is rather a larger particles that try to overcome it. So because supposing we have a condition wherein the smaller particles, they assume a terminal velocity and they are propagating downward, and you have fed in the larger size particle a minutes later. So you have fed in a larger size particle few minutes later, but even though it is fed in few minutes later, because of its size, it assumes a greater velocity and it will try to overcome this propagating smaller size particles, and then it tries to overcome these propagating smaller size particles which are propagating at a very low velocity because of their sizes, and this large particle will propagate at a very high velocity because of its size. When it tries to overcome it, there will be an interaction and this will slow down the propagation of this large size particle. So therefore what we have is, when you consider the propagation of the particles during the classification process, of course it depends on the accelerating force, of course it depends on the resisting force offered by the medium. In addition to that, it also depends on the volume fraction of the particle that you are considering. So like the process of screening depends on the feed rate, here in the process of classification it also depends on the amount of particles or the volume fraction of the particles that you consider in a medium. So in case of screening, we saw that we need to reduce the feed rate so that in order to ensure that sufficient amount of time is spent by the particle on the surface of the screen. Now here the feed rate, the proportion of or the volume fraction of particles in a given medium, it also influences the classification but in a different way. The way it influences classification is, in case of when in a low feed rate condition, in case where there is few amount of particles that are present in the medium, then the particle will exhibit a free flow. There will not be any interaction between the different particles. However, when you have a condition such as this, what you essentially would end up having is, you would end up having a significant amount of interaction between the particles themselves, and ultimately this will have its own contribution to the flow of the particles. So therefore we have, depending on the feed rate, meaning depending on the volume fraction of the particles present at a given time within the medium, the factors influencing its propagation through the medium varies. When you have small volume fraction, then in that case the factors influencing the propagation is the accelerating velocity, here in this case is the gravitational force, and the resistive force that is offered by the medium. So the interaction plays a negligible role. However, when you have a significant portion of the particle in a given medium at a specific time, then the interaction between the particles also plays a vital role, in addition to that of the gravitational force and the resistive force offered by the medium. Now we have stated generically like small volume fraction of the particles and the higher volume fraction of the particles. The demarcation line is, or the demarcation value is 15%. Let me write it a bit more legibly given its importance. So when the volume fraction of the particles, the volume percentage of the particles in a medium during the process of classification is less than that of 15%, then the particle will exhibit a free fall. However, on the other hand, if the volume fraction of or the volume percentage of the particle in the medium is greater than 15%, then essentially the particle will exhibit an arrested fall. So arrested fall meaning, in addition to the other factors, the interaction between the particle, it governs the terminal velocity, the final velocity of these falling particles. So there are two modes in which the particles can propagate when across a medium, when it is governed by the gravitational force, when it is governed by the acceleration due to gravity. So when the fraction of the particle is less than 15%, then the interaction between the particle doesn't play a role. It is solely governed by the acceleration due to gravity. When it is more than 15%, in addition to the acceleration due to gravity, in addition to the resistance, you have the interaction between the particles playing a vital role. Now, we have been considering, so all these have been the theoretical components associated with the process of classification. So far what we have seen is we have seen the principle of the process of classification. What is the principal factors that govern the process of classification? And we have seen the practical aspect on how the separation can be achieved by introducing a dynamic fluid. So by introducing a dynamic fluid instead of a static one, we saw that how a more efficient mode of classification can be achieved. And of course we have seen some of the theoretical components of the classification, meaning we have seen that we just saw that there are two different ways in which the particle experiences a resistance depending on the terminal velocity, and we also saw the different factors that govern the behavior of the particles during the process of classification. What are the different factors that play a role? So we saw that in addition to the feature of the particles, in addition to the inherent feature of the particles, of course the gravitational force, the accelerating force plays a role, and the resistive force plays a role, and finally the interaction between the particle, it plays a role in determining how a particle would behave during the process of classification. So this features here is the properties of the particles. So this first factor that governs the behavior of a particle in a medium is the feature of the particle. So it includes density, mass, and size. So out of these there are only two independent variables. So we have this combination of the features that governs the behavior of a particle during the classification process. This accelerating force is governed by what type of force we are employing. So far we have seen only gravitational force. So we are just so far considered the moment of the particle solely governed by the gravitational force, and therefore the accelerating force is none other than the gravitational force. In case of the resistive force, what we essentially have is we have the force that is offered, that is principally governed by the medium. So once you specifically choose as medium, then you are then fixing the resistive force that is offered by the medium. Again, even though this resistive force depends on the size of the particles, the medium also, the other factor that governs the resistive force is the medium. The amount of the resistive force rather is governed by the medium, and this interaction between the particles depends on the volume of particles that is present in a given medium at a given instance. So the other factor that governs the behavior of the particle in a given medium is the volume of the particle in a given medium at a given instance. It also governs the behavior of the particle during classification. Now, while considering these different aspects that we have considered, we have looked into during our discussion on the classification, we have rather been confined to just one form of the accelerating force, that is the gravitational force. Now, in this discussion, even though we have covered several aspects of the classification process, when we look into the factors governing the classification process, the accelerating force, this resistive force, it depends on medium. So we can consider different medium. You can consider air, you can consider water, you can also consider any other dense medium, and depending on it, the resistive force offered by the medium to a specific particle varies. However, when we consider the accelerating force, we have just considered one of the force, or one form of the force, that is the gravitational force. But on an industrial scale, in addition to the gravitational force, another form of the accelerating force is also employed, and that is the centrifugal force. So on an industrial scale, not only or often in addition to the gravitational force, because we cannot get rid of the gravitational force, so in addition to the gravitational force, centrifugal force is also employed to introduce an acceleration in the particles, to induce the acceleration in the particles. So the classifiers are built in such a way that the centrifugal force rather plays a much more or a vital role than that of the gravitational force. So far our discussions have largely been confined to that of the classification wherein gravitational force alone plays a vital role. So that is rather that helps us understand the basics or the fundamentals of the classification. However, when you consider the industrial scale equipments which are used for the process of classification, in these equipments rather the centrifugal force is employed. The reason the centrifugal force is employed is because, as opposed to the gravitational force, when you consider the gravitational force, it is rather constant. So you cannot vary the gravitational force. Of course, depending on the particle that you consider, the impact of the gravitational force might vary on a given particle, but gravitational force as a whole you cannot vary. So therefore, when you are considering, essentially classification comprises or it considers particles of smaller sizes. So whenever you are considering the impact of the gravitational force on the smaller size particles and you want to consider its terminal velocity and how it behaves within a given medium, all these processes are rather relatively slow. And on an industrial scale, when you have such processes consuming a long period of time, it ultimately affects your economic benefit. So therefore, this use of gravitational force, even though it is efficient, it is rather, even though it brings about, it facilitates the process of classification, it is not as controllable as that of the centrifugal force. So centrifugal force, it brings about the same effect as that of the gravitational force, but what it also does is it enables us to govern the amount of force that we introduce on the, or that the amount of force that we impose on the different particles. So therefore, on an industrial scale, even though for understanding or for describing the classification, gravitational force is built, or the gravitational force is considered, in case of centrifugal force, or on an industrial scale, the centrifugal force is employed given our ability to handle it more efficiently or handle it more freely when compared to that of the gravitational force. Given our ability to handle it alone is a big advantage, or the centrifugal force, that when compared to that of the gravitational force. And again, like we considered before, in case of gravitational force, the impact of it depends on the size of the particles, and when you have particles of a very smaller size, the time taken for these particles when acted upon by the gravitational force alone, and the time taken for this particle when acted upon by the gravitational force alone to settle down will be quite higher. So there will be a prolonged duration for which will be taken by the particle to settle down when acted upon by the gravitational force alone, because the size of the particle is quite small, the mass of the particle is quite small. So in that cases, what we have a size limitation. If we want our process, the overall classification process, to be faster, then we will be considering only those specific sizes of particles that will allow us, that will settle down at a very faster pace. The particles that cannot settle down at a faster pace will not be considered for the gravitational force based classification process. So in those cases, we will be, or in the industrial scale or in the commercial setting, we will be using centrifugal force as the accelerating force. So essentially, even though for the discussion's sake, for building up our understanding, gravitational force is treated as the accelerating force itself, it helps us understand more of the classification process. On commercial setting, centrifugal force is considered as the accelerating force. So with this, I would like to wind this lecture up. In the subsequent lecture, we will consider the equipment that are used for the process of classification, and then in the next lecture onwards, we will move on to the other process of the other technique that constitutes the mineral processing, which is the concentration. So we will see ourselves in the next lecture. Goodbye.